FedEx full, we commanding the block. Burgundy and gold, got the city on lock. Hustling plays, they don't need to pretend. DC reppin' strong and we fight to the end. Commanders moving, no breaks, no pause. Hands in the dirt, respecting the call. K-Dot in the mid, dissect the grind. District divider with a city in mind. Trying to dance why, don't miss a bit. And you gotta spread the words, or shit is shit. K-Dot.
Welcome, everyone, to District Divided, a DC sports podcast. More specifically, a Washington Commanders podcast. I am Amit. That is K-Dot. This episode, we brought a lot of guys back, and we welcome some new ones as well. We're going to get into the re-signings that we made, talk about the new guys that have joined, a quick note for the departures, and a thank you to them. We're also going to talk about the trades that we made as well. So it's not just the free agency signings, but the trades that were made as well. Remaining draft picks, cap space remaining, where to from here, etc. Before we begin this episode, though, if you could please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment, as you always do. Got a comment, mailbag, and K-Dot.
All right, so we're all fans of this team, except for you out there, Coach. We have seen Twitter being a bit of a hellscape the last few days as free agency and everything is gone. And I know you see the thumbnail here on the video. You're wondering where are we going to fall on it, right? Winners or losers? Are we hypercritical out of Peters? Like, where are we at? Sky's falling? I don't know. I think this will sum up exactly what it is we felt. I was able to record a conversation I was having with a Commanders fan that was a little critical of what was going on, okay? So I just thought you guys should just share. You should see what it is that I had as far as that conversation goes.
Look at me, son. It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. I know. No. It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. All right? It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
It's not your fault, man. It's not your fault. You've been abused. You've been hurt. I get it. It's not your fault. It's okay. It's okay. You can believe in something now. All right? It's not your fault. Bring it in. Come on. Bring it in. Hug your screen right now. I'm hugging you. It's not your fault. We get it. We love you. It's not your fault.
And share this shit.
Share this shit, bitch.
Beautifully done behind the curtain. I never know what's coming with these videos. You knocked that out of the park. That was so perfectly done with the PTSD, everyone wanting shit on their wish list. It didn't work day one, skies falling all of a sudden. It's like, have we not learned that when you get everything on your wish list, things typically don't go well? And with that, why don't we go ahead?
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Do you know what movie that's from?
Yes. Good Will Hunting.
Yes, my God!
Amazing. What a great start. What a great start to the pod.
Let's go!
Yes, I do. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about the guys we brought back. Let's first begin with the heroes from last season. Some of them anyway, but most of them. So beginning with Bobby Wagner, we, of course, touched on last week. 1 year, $9 million. Zach Ertz back high on K-Dot's list, number 2 on K-Dot's list. 1 year, $6.25 million, could be up to 9. Number 1 on K-Dot's list, and I got to give you props here, K-Dot, because this is the only guy brought back for 3 years. John Bates, 3 years, $21 million, $11.5 million guaranteed. That means the team and you, K-Dot, completely lockstep. We need to bring this guy back. So shout out to you. Noah Brown, 1 year, $4.5 million. Tress Way, 1 year, $2.8 million. Thank goodness. Zane Gonzalez, league minimum, 1 year, 1.17 technically is what it is. KJ Osborn, 1 year. Jeremy McNichols, 1 year. Sheldon Day, 1 year. Michael Deiter, 1 year. Trent Scott, 1 year. Noah Igbinoghene, 1 year. Nick Bellore, 2 years. Kevon Seymour, 1 year. Chris Rodriguez, 1 year. So those are the returns. If I missed any, I apologize, but that's what I have written here. K-Dot, your reaction to the re-signings, who are you most excited about? The floor is yours.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited because went through the list last week, and a lot of those names were names we had on that list that got brought on back. I think the only time that I was a little iffy was who was going to be brought back as far as wide receiver. The only person I was sort of like, I don't think it fits as Zaccheaus anymore just because of what Debo is going to do and whether those will do with Terry, maybe some Luke McCaffrey, and he's not back. Who did he sign with?
Chicago.
We'll
get to the departures in a moment.
Yeah, we'll do that. But Noah Brown being the guy, I think that's you've been high on Noah Brown this entire offseason as far as one of the priorities, and I can totally see it. The size that he has, he was hurt a lot last year, but in the moments that he wasn't hurt, I mean, he's brought us some really great memories from last year. So if they're going to try to see if whether or not he could step up to be number 2, what it is they might do in the draft, not to mention free agency is far from over, so who knows as far as any of that stuff goes. But the dude that brings something to the team that the other guys that we have on the roster do not at wide receiver, Noah Brown seems to fit that bill. So it just makes all sense in the world. You know how I feel about John Bates. You know how I feel about Nick Bellore. Sheldon Day was one of the dudes on the defensive line. Of all the guys on the defensive line, I think it was the only one I actually outright named, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct. Looking at your list, yes.
Yeah.
And Dante Fowler, who's still a free agent right now.
Right. He's going through some things right now. I don't think he necessarily loves that nobody seems to really love him at this particular point in time, or at least love him owugh to pay him what it is he thinks he's being owed.
We'll see what happens there. Of course, free agency
it looks
continues.
like there's a good chance he might be coming back home because it looks like what's out. It seems, though, reading between the lines, we've offered him something. He's like, I want to see if there's more. There might not be any more, so he might come on back, but we'll see. I mean, shit, things might change as far as other aspects of free agency where he might not have a spot. So clock's a ticking, Dante. We'll see. But Tress way, of course, goes without saying. But I mean, it's a good group of guys to bring back. And as we go into some of the new guys, you'll make more sense of why it is they let certain guys go. Because as we said last season, you saw the amount of 1-year contracts, the amount of veterans that they brought in. Mm-hmm. We're doing something similar just because we have to. But you're looking for which ways can you be a little more focused on what you're doing? What ways can you just upgrade purely on what it is that we had last year? And it's a kind of pick and choose. It's really cherry picking. And it's from what I'm seeing, it looks like they have a true game plan as far as what it is they're looking for and how it is they want to improve. And they're being very selective about it.
So I want to touch on one theme here, which is that a lot of these, like 10 of them, I'm guesstimating about 12 on this list right now. 10 of them are 1-year deals.
Yep.
Right? We're doing the same thing we did last year, which is hey, you're back for 1 year, prove it. That money's off the books. Once again, you can reassess. We're seeing what sticks one more time. John Bates getting 3 years, 21. That to me is an emphasis on the physicality that we talked about. We mentioned 49ers East. That may be a bit, a bit shiny, but the idea being that you're a physical team at the point of attack and that you are able to run the ball. We'll get to, of course, the new signings in a moment to be able to talk about that some more as well. Nick Bellore, we value special teams. He was excellent for us last season. He comes back on a multi-year deal, but the rest are 1 year. Looking at the wide receivers, is there still room for a wide receiver too after Noah Brown and KJ Osborn return? And we'll get into the draft picks that we have and stuff like that. Maybe a potential signing. Michael Gallup visited. So who knows? And then the running backs coming back. That does not preclude you from taking a running back in the draft. So it's Jeremy McNichols and Chris Rodriguez. It does not mean that come pick 61 or even pick 29, if you're aggressive and you really like a running back, that you take one there. So all to say that we are doing the right thing in terms of foundational pieces coming back. These are probably people with excellent attitudes, with excellent work ethics. And then the higher money you are seeing is like, hey, we also expect you to play a big role this coming season. These are the re-signings. Of course, I'm most excited about Bobby. I think for you, it's Zach and John. Bobby, of course, too, but like Zach and John. And then, of course, both of us, goes without saying, Tress way. I'm so glad they got that done. That would have been like a real dark stain just from the morale and like how much the fans love Tress Way's standpoint. So
beyond that, I don't think there's an upgrade you can make at punter. So like,
it's like he's one of the best.
You're also getting one of the best players, period. Right. So like, yeah, that matters quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty hyped about it. Once again, we were in the fucking NFC Championship last year. There's not a whole lot of guys that you think about that were on this team last year that you're like, good riddance. No, you want most of the squad to be back. Like the only reason you're saying goodbye to anyone is because from a valuation standpoint, it might get in the way of potentially making the team better. That's it. That's the cold hardness of football and the business side of it, right? We're trying to build a winner. So, and every team has to do that. You got some teams that are a lot better at it where you don't even question it. It's kind of cold, calculated. Fuck it. We're going to do what we need to do. You look at the Philadelphia Eagles. Ain't no love loss. Like, Harry, how is no one? CJ Gardner-Johnson, on principle, fuck you, son. But let him go, right? Let him go. We got other things we got to do. We got dudes we got to develop. We got dudes we need to bring in. You can't stay stagnant. Otherwise, everybody's going to leave you behind. So you got to keep moving. I love the dudes that we're bringing back. I don't have a negative thing to say about any one of them. As a matter of fact, some of the dudes that were on my list, I had to kind of make a little bit of leeway with, not because I didn't like them, but because I was afraid there might not be somebody else better. But like, shit, it didn't please me to put Benjamin St. Juste on my list of guys that I needed to come back. Right? It's you're doing what you can to build a squad, to try to see what it is you can do to get the best out of people. And as we go through and roll around this entire free agency and the re-signing thing, I think the phrase that goes along in my head is from the New England Patriots, which is do your job. They're bringing in guys to do specific jobs. Right. Do your job. Like we want you to be specialists in certain things to help us out. Do your fucking job. Like that's what we're here to bring you in for. Here's your salary. Go do your fucking job. That's it.
Yep. And that is it. And now let's quickly touch on the departures before we move on to the new signings. Jonathan Allen, and congrats to him. 3 years, $60 million. That's excellent. He goes to the Minnesota Vikings. Dyami Brown got his 1 year, $10 million deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So best of luck to him. Benjamin St. Juste with the LA Chargers. Best of luck to him. Jeremy Chinn, 2 years, $16 million to the Las Vegas Raiders. Best of luck to him. Olamide Zaccheaus, we had mentioned earlier, K-Dot did. Chicago Bears, I want to say that's a 1 year deal. Best of luck to him. Cornelius Lucas, 2 years, up to $10 million, I believe, in Cleveland as a swing tackle. Best of luck to him. And Defoe, Darrick Forrest to the Buffalo Bills. Best of luck to him as well. Because, I mean, yeah, it was a special team last season. So that's why each and every time, no matter what you think of each player, best of luck to him is what we choose to have over here as the positive attitude. Any final thoughts there on the departures, K-Dot?
No, good luck to all you guys and where it is you went. When I see some of the numbers come back, it even makes more sense as far as why they're not here anymore. Right. Jacksonville, I don't know what the fuck I don't know what they're doing.
They got a lot of wide receivers already. It's strange.
I don't understand. You see the Christian Kirk salary for where he is. I don't think anybody in the world is thinking Dyami Brown is better than Christian Kirk. And I'm like, you get a dude that played okay for you to get this dude that had a run in the playoffs for a little bit. Like, I don't get it. But like, when you see, I mean, I think I talked about it on the or was I talking about someone else? You have you seen the ages of the guys in Jacksonville?
No, we haven't talked about this.
Between like the coach, the GM, I think the offense coordinator, I think average age might be 31 or something like that. Like they literally, like the GM looks like a child. There's no getting around it. Yeah, he's like in his early 30s. It's like, look, Jacksonville is going to be one of those things that I think I don't know. Season's a long time away, but I just want everybody to kind of pencil in and put a little asterisk towards. If you hear anything about what's going on in Jacksonville, pay kind of attention to it. I know it's hard. It's Jacksonville. Fucking Jacksonville. Fuck Jesus. But pay attention to what it is they're doing, because when someone in the NFL bucks trends and is starting their own thing, I got to give credence to it. This league does not have a lot of originality. They're doing some shit down there. Just slightly pay attention. I don't understand it yet. Like, yeah. I think you can pay attention.
Which, of course, means that this will be K-Dot's side piece team this coming season. We go to the new signings over here. Just called knowing your co-host. So here are the new guys. Javon Kinlaw, 3 years, $45 million, which raised some eyebrows for people. So we'll chat about that. Will Harris, safety, 2 years, $8 million, hard hitter, and had a really nice interview over with BC with the Commanders, which got people fired up. Jonathan Jones, 1 year, $5.5 million. Corner, physical corner as well from the New England Patriots. Deatrich Wise, 1 year, $5 million. Defensive lineman from the Patriots as well. Jacob Martin, 1 year, $3 million, $1 million per sack. He had 3 sacks last season with the Chicago Bears. And then Eddie Goldman, 1 year deal. He had actually spent a lot of time with Chicago, had a couple of years off of football. I think opted out during the COVID year, spent a year in Atlanta, and now he comes to the Commanders. Those are the signings. I'm also going to touch on the trades because that's also important for new guys. Most recently, Laremy Tunsil from the Houston Texans, a really good left tackle, 5-time Pro Bowler. Some say elite, some say at minimum really good. So we get Laremy Tunsil and a 4th round pick. We gave up a 3rd round pick this year, 7th round pick this year as well. along with a second-round pick next year and a fourth-round pick next year. A reminder that we got Marshawn Lattimore. It was Marshawn Lattimore and a fifth-round pick from the Saints for a third, fourth, and sixth-round pick on our end this season. I mentioned that one before Debo because the fifth-round pick that came with Marshawn is what flipped into Debo Samuel, that exact pick. And so those are the trades along with the signing. So before we get to draft picks, cap space, etc., K-Dot, what do you make of the new guys?
Done enough on Debo. You guys know where I'm at on that. We don't need to argue anymore about the semantics of what we label him.
The labeling, correct.
Although I think it's pretty firm. No, I'm checking.
By the way, I re-listened to it. I was like, that was a good discussion.
It was.
That was really good. Yeah, anyway.
I think at the end, we're just sort of yelling the same things, but it was good. And then there was a lot of yelling, saying, and then we kind of got good with it again. And then it was just, but yeah, I think we've run it's run its course for now.
I agree.
We'll argue about it in a few weeks.
Of course.
Especially after whatever it is they do in the draft.
We also got a comment mailbag with some thoughts on Debo. So we'll
shit. All right, cool. We'll get to it. All right. So there will be some in this episode. Marshawn Lattimore, we already kind of know as far as that. So next up, let's go the biggest one, Laremy Tunsil.
Yeah.
If at the end of the day, if you look at all the compensation, what have you, I know John Keim actually wrote in his ESPN article, I believe, like if you look at it and you do the whole draft trade chart or whatever, it's like overall, I think what it equals is like a second round draft pick for your next year, not this year's second round draft pick, but like next year's second round draft pick is what it looks like as far as from a trade valuation standpoint. Like if you were looking at all of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you tell me that I would trade a second round draft pick for a 30-year-old multi-pro bowler left tackle, sign me the fuck up. Like that's kind of just what it boils down to. Like I think what everybody's looking at as far as Laremy Tunsil is trying to make sense of things. So like you look at the Houston Texans, CJ Stroud 2 years ago, that offensive line, dogs, right? Just getting the fucking job done. Then last year it's like, well, what happened? What happened? And if you talk to anybody in Houston, it seems as though nobody exactly knows who to blame for anything, but there are some facts that just kind of seep through for everybody, right? So as far as the blame game, some people are blaming the offensive line just not being talented enough. Some people are blaming Bobby Sloak and whatever he was doing as far as the offense. Those are usually the two big camps that people are falling in as far as Houston, right? Then you start looking at the tape. Offensive linemen look pretty much like shit except for one guy, Laremy Tunsil. So you're like, well, what does that mean? So then you start listening to some of the reporters talk, and they're like, Laramy's a dude that he likes being an NFL player in the sense of like he gets to wear fancy clothes. He likes cars. He likes all the trappings of being an NFL athlete. He doesn't mind playing the game. He loves playing the game. But if you're asking him to be the guy in the locker room that gets everybody on the same page, that ain't in his job description. So he doesn't necessarily want to do that. So I think when you have I know that I don't know if everybody's familiar with D'Amico Ryans down there as far as the head coach. He has, everybody has their thing like we rhyme violently.
Yes.
He has a thing called Swarm. I forget what the fucking acronym is about, but it's all about the kind of guy that he wants. And if you hear that description of Laremy Tunsil, he does not fit Swarm as far as what it is that they want to do. So when you hear that and you think about what it is we're trying to build as far as Commanders culture here, you're like, all right, is that a fit? Not sure. But what you also hear the more and more you talk about Laremy Tunsil is that he's not a distraction. He's just not doing the extra shit. And the thing is, like, for some people, maybe it's D'Amico Ryans not necessarily being a head coach too long. Maybe it's you look at some of the coordinators they have down there. It's not necessarily guys that have been around forever. You look at the rest of the locker room, not a whole lot of vets. Maybe it's just the scenario or the situation itself is not necessarily bringing the best out of them. Maybe a change of pace will be able to spark something in them, right? You look at the guys that we have on our staff. There's no dearth of experience here as far as dealing with all sorts of players. So when I look at Laremy Tunsil, all I think of is last year watching the All-22, the amount of times that whatever it is that we could do on offense was dictated on how much we could help our tackles. How much John Bates could be lined up next to one of the tackles. Right. How much Zach Ertz would have to chip before he went out somewhere. Where's the running back to help chip whoever was on the left tackle? If I could say, Laremy Tunsil, you're going to play on an island, sir. You don't got to be with the rest of the team. I just want you to take care of your responsibility and protect our quarterback. He can do that. And I care about that more than I care about any other fucking thing. Okay? Plug that motherfucker in there so we can do other things on offense. So if I'm grading this, even knowing everything as far as all the other bullshit, it's a fucking A. It's a full-blown A. Give me some Laremy Tunsil to take care of the fucking quarterback's blind side. Do it. Do it. Yeah. Do it. Do it.
If I could add to your point, it's easily an A, no matter what Houston thinks of Laremy, no matter what anybody else thinks of Laremy, because on the surface alone, this is a massive upgrade at left tackle. We talked about our identity as a franchise, right? Chris Samuel. Then we go over to Trent Williams. Well, now we're back in that conversation. 5-time Pro Bowler, 3 Pro Bowls in a row now coming to Washington, right? So this guy's proven. And if you're just putting him on an island, great. That's all you need from your left tackle. Now, if it's Laremy Tunsil and John Bates next to each other, and we've traded for Debo, now I'm beginning to see exactly what Adam Peters is talking about with the arrive violently, play physically, play fast. You're beginning to see what we want to do on offense, right? That's where the bigger money's going. So just to pay attention to the money, because that speaks to who we want to be. And Laremy Tunsil very much fits what we want to do there. Now, I got to say on the other side that he led the league in false starts, I want to say, last season. So it is also important to note that, hey, there may be some moments of frustration, and we hope that he cleans that up. That's where you lean into culture. That's where you lean into Dan Quinn and others being able to ignite enough enthusiasm that, like, hey, I want to do some of the extra stuff. That's where that situation matters a whole lot. And we hope it cuts down, but it has to be noted that, yeah, there is a false start issue with Laremy Tunsil. But if he doesn't, my God, second lowest sack rate percentage given up by anybody in the last 3 seasons. And again, a Pro Bowler on a line where the offensive line was the problem. So he was the really, really good one. And then there were 4 like, so just want to note that too. Go ahead, K-Dot.
No, that's perfect. And I think what exacerbates that issue is the tempo in which we run an offense. So yeah, I will guarantee you he will frustrate the shit out of you at certain points. Yeah. But as you were naming the other offensive tackles that we've had in the past, every time that anyone has said anything about Laremy Tunsil as far as what was going on in the locker room or everything, I kept thinking about one person in particular, Trent fucking Williams. Trent Williams didn't want to be considered as either the leader of men or this, that, and the other, right? He wasn't the rah guy. What Trent used to do that frustrated the shit out of us, but we kind of liked it, was remember how many times over the course of the season Trent was going to fight somebody or punch somebody in the face and maybe it didn't get called, but it should have been called? Like shit like that. Like, look, some of your best players are going to have some character flaws. They're going to have some issues. Like, but you deal with it because of the talent and everything they bring to you, right? So, like, when I hear Trent Williams, I mean, if you know him off the field or you've heard about him off the field, cares about his cars, cares about his clothes, cares about all that kind of. I'm like, but he can still ball, and everybody has him number 1 on the fucking list. You don't talk about the other shit, right? He has his little clique there in San Francisco with his Debo, Seymour, this, that, and the other. Maybe Laremy Tunsil finds his guy in Debo too. Maybe they rocking boom boxes. I don't give a fuck.
I see it. I see that as a possibility.
Yeah. You see the vision, right? So it's like, I just think our culture is going to be, I think our culture is one in which feels more inclusive. I think our culture is one in which if you feel as though you're on the outside of it, I think it bothers with you just a little bit more. And I think that you have the veteran leadership here that can pull in those strings just a little bit. So I just think he'll be in a better situation overall. But overall, it's just the motherfucker can play.
He's great. And just wanting to say also, now it adds flexibility to the O-line in Brandon Coleman, right? 100%. And that's another big piece of this, which is when Brandon Coleman was coming out of the draft, people said, yes, he can play left tackle, but we also see great things for him at guard. Right. We could also see him playing right tackle. John Keim had mentioned, so Andrew Wiley restructured his deal, that there is a thought that Brandon Coleman will play right tackle and maybe kick Wiley inside. Allegretti would stay at left guard. All to say that there's a conversation now. What do? We want Brandon Coleman on the line. He's huge, right? He's got high potential. And so what is he going to do? Where is he going to be on the line? We now have flexibility thanks to this trade. So it's not just Laremy, but it's what it allows the rest of the offensive line to be as well. Is the point I wanted to make.
The Brandon Coleman, if you watch the All-22, had his struggles. Now, when I say, I usually hear me talk about speed. It's not necessarily from an athleticism speed standpoint. It's just he's not processing stuff fast enough to then utilize his athleticism to get what he needs to get done. He just had the technique and everything down yet. I actually think what this ends up doing, and if you listen to John Keim, he was very much like, nothing's set in stone, nothing's set in stone. They line up this, that, and the other. I would not be surprised with the Sam Cosmi injury you might have a situation where they either think, okay, Sam Cosmi on the right side, we're missing him. Maybe we just need somebody more athletically gifted on the right side. Maybe that means he goes to right tackle. Maybe it means when Sam Cosmi's out, they have him play guard to replace Sam Cosmi, and then he switches to something else. I would not be surprised if you have one look of the offensive line as far as some guys playing, like Brandon Coleman playing one position when Cosmi's out, and then when he's back, he's playing an entirely different position. It helps as far as positional flex, which I know is a phrase nobody likes after hearing from Ron Rivera, but it is something of note if you can do it and you can do it well. And if you got a guy like Brandon Coleman, which you're still sort of feeling out where he's going to get the best, maybe sometimes where a guy like that, if he gets some time at guard or gets some time at right tackle compared to left tackle, he can get more confidence in. He can start processing things a little bit better, and then you might have a star on your hands. But I think that all of this just helps as far as the development of Brandon Coleman and also allows us to get the best out of the rest of the guys in the offensive line.
Perfectly said. And now we talk about versatility and flexibility. Let's talk about the defensive line, because we picked up not one, not two, not three, 4 new defensive linemen. Okay. Jacob Martin, specifically a D end, Eddie Goldman, specifically a D tackle. Let's talk about Javon Kinlaw, right? Let's talk about Deatrich Wise. These guys are D linemen. And what I mean by that is they can play inside, they can play outside. You now have versatility over there. You've seen the term elephant edge thrown around with Javon Kinlaw, which is sort of that bigger body on the outside to quite clearly help set an edge and make sure people are going inside, for example. That could help a Daron Payne. That could help a Johnny Newton. If you've been listening to K-Dot's All 22s, you know Daron Payne played on the outside a little bit, so you can see the vision with Dan Quinn already. Maybe Kinlaw does that instead. K-Dot, those signings on the D line, you can quite clearly see what we're doing. We got abused in the run game last season. This is clearly an intention to run stuff some and still have the versatility to be able to rush the passer. What do you make of the moves there?
Fucking love him, honestly.
Me
like
too.
I get the one that is the most controversial is actually going to be Kinlaw one. And I think the Kinlaw one, everybody's looking at it from a price point standpoint. When you start seeing, when you follow Kinlaw, or like Kinlaw is a name that everybody's aware of, right? Because of where he got drafted, when he got drafted. But beyond that, he gets released by San Francisco. So you hear a draft pick getting that high, he doesn't make it to the second round, he just gets released. You're like, bust. And then he goes to New York and nothing really good happened there. So you're just like,
it's true. It's a story. Yeah.
And then you pay him this amount of money. You're like, what the fuck? But I think that, number one, if you look across the league and you're looking at anybody that's going to be on the defensive line that's going to start, that number's not crazy at all. And then if you look at it in the comparison as far as like Jonathan Allen and what we were going to pay and what he just got per year compared to Kinlaw and what it is he's getting paid right now, kind of makes sense.
And
like
he's 3 years younger.
You got somebody 3 years younger, you're paying less. Like, kind of makes sense to me. And especially when you talk about that, I think they call it elephant end is what
end. Excuse me. I said edge. Yes, I misspoke.
And yeah, dude, anytime that anybody got Javon Kinlaw brought up, I kept thinking about them moving Daron Payne on the outside, right? And I think with this, I don't know exactly what direction they're going to go in with it, because I look at Kinlaw and I say that he flashes more like, dude's just physical. That's the other thing as far as if you look at all, Jacob Martin's the only guy that didn't do a deep dive on, so I'm not going to talk a whole lot about him. But as far as the other guys, Javon Kinlaw, 6'5", 320. Eddie Goldman, 6'3", 320.
Big boy.
Deatrich Wise, 6'5", 280. They got big. Because what do we need? Run defense, run defense, run defense. You saw so many times this last season, guys were just getting pushed. They was getting pushed around, holes wide open. There was just some stuff as far as from the physicality aspect of it that you just saw they just weren't lining up properly as far as what it is they needed to do. I think with this, and especially with Javon Kinlaw, I don't know if they keep him inside, maybe use more of his like athletic freak nature to try to generate a pass rush. He doesn't seem as though he has a whole lot of technique when it comes to pass rush. Like there's not a game plan necessarily for it, but he's physical. And maybe you have Daron Payne play exclusively on the outside now, or at least play majority of the snaps on the outside and try to set that edge. Because I'm telling you, over the course of the season, it looked a lot better when he was outside, right? So maybe you're going to rely on that rotation more in the middle. Eddie Goldman, that's a nose tackle right there. That's a zero technique, big fucking freak there in the middle.
Space eater. Yeah.
Space eater. At times in his career early on, he was one of the best run defending alignment in the league, period. He's not necessarily been up to that level recently, but I think if they can get him to focus or hone in on one aspect of the game and have other guys do it, that goes back to that do your job sort of thing, right? It allows them some positional flex as far as letting some of the other guys that might be a little more talented move around and get more out of them. Like, if you find somebody that can, like, all right, I can plug him in a nose tackle, we're good there. Maybe you have Deron Payne playing there sometimes. Maybe you got Kinlaw playing there sometimes. But I know maybe some of the other guys are more athletic freaks, so I'm going to line them up somewhere else on this. Let me put Goldman right there. I'm going to kick Deron Payne on the outside. How about Kinlaw on the outside this time, right? You can do all sorts of things. I love confusion as far as from what the offense is looking at. And I love guys that are just big bruising motherfuckers on the defensive line, because it was when we were getting tore up or ate up the way that we were in the trenches on that run defense. I didn't like looking at it, because there are a few things that make you feel like a bitch more than just getting moved.
It's true. It's true.
It hurts. Like, it doesn't feel right. You just feel as if somebody's just overpowering you. It's just, it doesn't.
Dog,
it doesn't feel great.
You could have Patrick Mahomes, but ask Kansas City. They got bullied in that Super Bowl. We got bullied. Like, you know what needs to happen. Right. We could think the world of Jaden Daniels, but you need to beef up on the trenches. The Laremy Tunsil move helps with the versatility, helps with having a 5-time Pro Bowler over here. So at worst, he's still going to be good. And then on the defensive line, add as many bodies as you can. The more, the merrier. Okay. Then that's what we're doing over here. So that's why I love it. And go ahead. No, go ahead.
Deatrich Wise. That's a dude that was a perennial team captain on that New England team. Even like he's a dude. Like, I think a lot of people, if you haven't watched his game or you haven't watched a lot of New England stuff, the stats don't jump off the screen, but his play does at times. That's a dude that I think is a little unheralded because of where he plays. And once Tom Brady left, nobody's really paying attention to anything they're fucking doing up there. The dude, he's also really, really good as far as setting the edge as far as run defense. So that's one of the reasons his stats aren't that flashy. He can set the edge. So, like, if I'm grading all the defensive linemen, if they can unlock everything they need to unlock out of them, I'd give Deatrich Wise a B+. I give Eddie Goldman a B. And I would give Javon Kinlaw a solid. I give him a C+. I got to see something better than I saw on the tape in New York. But if they hone in and get him to specialize in one or two things and unlock those aspects of his game, with the guy Adam Peters knows that I think they're right. So, like, if they know something that maybe we don't, and like, hey, I think they're just asking him to do too much. Like, maybe we do this with him, maybe we do that with him. I think that C+ could absolutely turn into, at best, maybe A-, B+. And I'm sorry, but that's an upgrade of what we had, and I'm all for it.
Yep. And the thing with Kinlaw, he was speaking with media earlier, and he said, hey, I felt heavy last season. You know, I was asked to put on the weight. And what I want to do now is more cardio this coming off season to get leaner again, to be able to be flexible. Now, athletes can say whatever. The actions will ultimately determine. Same thing with Debo we were talking about, right? Like, ultimately, the actions will determine what they're about. Anyone can say anything. Any number of athletes, coaches win press conferences, and then, you know, something else happens. But the intention seems to be there, and it would allow more flexibility. Go ahead, K-Dot.
No, it's just the one thing you can say about this team last year, among all things, you didn't see lack of effort out there on the field. You might have seen people making mistakes. You might have seen people actually pressing too hard sometimes and getting beyond their head, beyond their legs, beyond their body, and then not processing the way they needed to and maybe rushed up things. But, like, I remember there was one point, like, Emmanuel Forbes, it didn't look like the effort was being put in as far as some of the tackles. Then you see him running around with reckless abandon. He was all wrong as far as everything he was doing, but it was like the effort's there. I don't think you can be on this team and in that locker room and not give it 100%, not try your all. I just think you'll be ostracized, and I think this coaching staff just won't fucking play it.
One other note I want to have, because 3 years, $45 million, $30 million guaranteed, and it seems to be universally accepted that it's a bad deal. The only thing I would say, because I disagree with that, is that, okay, well, who's the GM that made the decision, and how many big contracts has he given out and whiffed on? Right. Okay, well, that's going to be 0. He's whiffed on none. And I'm going to go ahead and say, based on last season, both the draft and free agency, that he's earned the benefit of the doubt. So I can't believe we're even having this conversation. But in Adam Peters, we trust. If it isn't working out, we will call him out. But for the time being, trust the guy, right? I mean, he helped draft the guy. Darryl Tapp was there. They were very excited to bring him in. Surely a reason for it. And they've got some championship pedigree. Okay, that's all I want to say. That's it.
Everybody that's criticizing it too heavy, just remember, bring it on in. It's not your fault.
It is not your fault. Let's talk about the secondary, and then we'll get to the remaining draft picks and the cap space that we have. So that's Will Harris, 2 years, $8 million. So that was a multi-year one as well. So seemed to like the guy. And then Jonathan Jones, 1 year, $5.5 million. K-Dot, your take on the secondary moves here.
Start Will Harris. I know everybody liked him. I know everybody had especially at game sealer. He's an upgrade over Jeremy Chinn, in my opinion. Period. This is a dude that's played snaps from damn near every position except defensive line. And he might have snaps of defensive line. It just didn't get
versatility
counted.
Again.
Right? Pure versatility. Also, if you look at what it is he does in his plays, there is one thing he does above all else in the secondary that I think is crucial to what it is this team needs to do, especially when you look at some of the deficiencies we have in some of the other aspects of the defense. So, number one, before I even get to that, run defender. Playing the box. Do all kinds of stuff, tackling machine, like the dude's physical.
Knocked out CeeDee Lamb. You saw the viral clip. Yep.
Well, I stay away from knockout and everything because I guess.
Oh well, yeah, you have to. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Look, he does have. I'll get to his deficiencies, but good as far as run defense if he's in the right position. We'll get to what happens if he's not in the right position. He's also really underrated as far as what he does against tight ends. He's an eraser of tight ends in certain aspects of the games. And you look at like where it is that we've kind of struggled at certain points in time, right? Bobby Wagner's great, veteran savvy, can't necessarily keep up with the tight ends the way you kind of want him to all the time. You see him kind of do it better in like the red zone when there's limited space and he uses technique. But if we're talking about wide open field, don't love that matchup. Frankie Louvu, kind of same thing. Love Frankie, think he can improve in certain aspects and give him the opportunity, but it's a bit of a liability if he's out of position, especially if we're going to start playing like man coverage, things like that. Then you look as far as the secondary goes. Was a struggle. Okay? This was a struggle. Sometimes the only reason that we didn't get what it is we needed to, sometimes the only reason the stat line against tight ends wasn't great is that sometimes our pass rush was able to generate enough where they had to keep tight ends in the backfield just to pass pro. But when they were running routes, didn't look great at times. It almost looked like it was an automatic first down or get them out of bad jams or bad spots by utilizing the tight end. And I think that dude is a great job as far as getting rid of the tight end, especially when in a Dan Quinn defense. We talked about this before last season. I think it was Coach when I asked the question in the sense of like, where do we think he's going to play as far as zone and man? What percentage of that and what was going to happen over the course of the season? And we told everybody, we think it will start a lot more zone, but they want to get the man as soon as possible. That's what ended up happening. A lot of times we were getting beaten man, so they had to go back to zone. They want to be in man. This only helps that. It helps that tremendously. And to add to that, Jonathan Jones. That's your man coverage specialist, baby.
Love him.
Dude can play. Only 5'9". You know in Washington, we love our short corners. We love our short corners here, man. Our short kings at corner. We have the god of all in Darrell Green. But Jonathan, I'm telling you, man, Jonathan Jones, if you watch his game, man can play. And especially playing in man-heavy schemes. Like if you want to put him, in the slot, he could do that. Does that mean that you're going to have Mikey Sanders still maybe stay on the outside? Possibly. I think that's possible. He's really good at it. But I've seen Jonathan Jones play on every which way as far as in the cornerback stuff. Is he an all-star shutdown corner? No. But the dude can ball. And if you got somebody else kind of flashing at one, looking at you, Marshawn, and you can take care of number 2 or whatever, I trust him against almost any number 2 receiver that you can throw him in the league. I like that. I like a dude that's going to cause some disruption, that's going to cause the quarterback to have to hold him the football just a little bit longer. All you need is just a little bit. All the little pieces of all the seconds matter, right? You just need somebody that's going to beat somebody who's a veteran and understands technique. A lot of times when we were getting beat, it was Mikey Sanders still is going to learn it with time, but sometimes improper technique being in the wrong position, right? Mm-hmm. Not necessarily the athleticism isn't there. It's just not enough savvy. You need somebody with a little more savvy being able to trick some of these defenders in just not getting open as easily as they have been against us.
Yeah, that's really well said. Once again, versatility. The quick note on Will Harris, that he also, now it was only the 1 year in New Orleans and Marshawn Lattimore was banged up for it primarily, but a bit of a head start coming into this building, knowing Marshawn. And as far as accounts go, they seem to get along. They seem to like each other, etc. So that's going to be important.
Communication.
for speeding up Will Harris over here and getting him on the field. Jonathan Jones, I really like. Deatrich Wise, same thing, because they both come from New England. When we had mentioned last week, we wanted guys like Justin Reed, Nick Bolton, Dre Green. Like, these are guys that have been to Super Bowls. These two have won, right? So Jonathan Jones, I really like from the versatility standpoint of you can play him in the slot, you can play him on the outside. We can see what's working, what's not working. Sanders still can go in the slot. Noah Igbinoghene is back, right? So now I'm seeing that secondary room. I'm feeling a heck of a lot better about it. And Will Harris is better in coverage than Jeremy Chinn. We'll miss Jeremy Chinn, certainly, but it is also nice to know that this front office rarely so far gives out multi-year deals, right? But when they do, you can trust them there. And so this is, yes, 2 years, but multi nonetheless. Also want to note that overall, the trend in terms of free agent signings, well, it's all defense. We traded for one guy on offense. The rest, we're focused on it, and there's a theme here too. They're physical. They'll hit you. We're thinking about Saquon. We're thinking about physical offenses and how we want to match that. And that's what these signings say to me, K-Dot, overall as a theme. Any final thoughts here?
The things on defense is run defense. that's and we need
all of it, okay? Right? Will Harris, Jonathan Jones, that's the secondary. And then the D-line, of course, same thing.
But you're also seeing the philosophical view of what Adam Peters is about when it comes to building this roster out. Like, and the other thing is, like, look, we had our list of the guys that we really wanted to have here, right? But take a look at my list as far as the dudes that I had that I wanted to bring here. How many of those dudes ended up re-signing exactly where they were? They were never going to get let go, right? Like, you don't want to get rid of a dude just in his mid-20s and showing flashes of being something great. Most of those guys re-signed somewhere. The only one that really didn't was Dre Greenlaw, right? And that goes back to, like I said, I like Dre Greenlaw. I think it could open up some things, but maybe they don't see Frankie Louvu in the same way that we see Frankie Louvu.
Right.
Maybe it wasn't the right fit. But overall, philosophically, you can see they're not trying to build the core of the team, or at least the special players in the team, through free agency. They want to do that through the draft. And you can see from a valuation standpoint, kind of like I feel, there's one thing to do the LA Rams bit when they were like, we don't care about the draft. Like, we don't give a fuck. We got guys across the league that we will leverage anything to go get, and they want to sell the Super Bowl out of it, right? What we're doing is we're saying, all right, look, picks from maybe the 3rd round to the 6th round, don't really care if we can get somebody that's a known commodity. I love that philosophically. We don't want to get rid of 1st-round picks because those are worth something. 2nd-round picks, we're going to think about it. We're going to think about it. If it's there and it makes sense, we might do it, but we don't necessarily want to. And then also, I still do believe that 1st-round pick for us is going to turn into multiple 2s. I got a feeling that that's going to be the case as far as what we do. But they're picking up dudes that they know are specialists in certain things to actually build out what it is they're trying to get better at beefing up with the team. And you can also see they are looking at certain positions and how it is we can have stopgaps without breaking the bank for them and allow to get the young guys to get some reps, or at least give us some space to draft some of the young guys to get in. That's what I look at with like a Jonathan Jones sort of thing. Great bridge, bridge, but not your long-term answer. You're still looking to see if you can go sign or draft this guy to maybe, all right, maybe he could step in. You got your Tyler Owens types that might be sitting in the wings, but I love this. There is an idea and a plan. Plan.
You got a plan. You got Dominique Hampton as well waiting in the wings. Jordan McGee waiting in the wings. So now those later round picks, time to step up. Let's see what you're made of, right? And you had touched on both things now here. Moving forward, the cap space. We have $45.3 million remaining this season. So plenty still that we can do with plenty of time still in free agency. This also assumes Deebo Samuel's option is exercised, which means just making his cap hit $5.7 million around this offseason instead of the 17. We'll see if they end up doing that, but I believe they'll end up exercising that option. The deadline's March 21st. And the remaining draft picks, right? We have a 1st-round pick, 29 overall, 2nd-round pick, 61 overall, 4th-round pick, 128 overall, 6th-round pick, 205 overall, 7th-round pick, 245 overall. K-Dot had mentioned, hey, we're probably going to look to move back. And I agree with that. I think we will end up looking to move back. The best recipe for that, monitor the quarterbacks. These are always the candidates people will move up for, or a really nice skill position player like a wide receiver or a running back. If some of these guys begin to pop and they get some buzz near draft time, that is when your pick 29 can turn into something quite nice, especially if it's a quarterback, because they're like, oh, we are mortgaging a bit of the future because we truly believe in this guy. That's the ideal trade candidate to get the most from it. So just monitor that as you are hoping to trade down for pick 29. K-Dot, moving forward, it's a round 1 pick right now. It's a round 2 pick as maybe immediate contributors. You see trading down. If we don't, what would you like to see done there?
To package the picks to trade up.
Ooh, other way.
It's just because look, man, I know my shortcomings. So like, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. Is that like a good part of self-awareness is to know that like you try to put stuff in place to prevent you from doing the worst that you can do. It's like when I had a Bovada online casino account, and
didn't we all?
After
Still
a week,
try to get my money out of there.
After a week, I had to contact Bovada, and I explained to them, I need you to ban me from your website.
I remember that.
And I had to give my social security number. I can't. So under no circumstances is Bovada allowed to let me back in. Had to protect against my worst impulses. Sometimes you need to do that, right? So I will 100% say the draft picks might be one of those things for me, okay? You don't necessarily want me in charge of the entire situation. So within the parameters of what it is we're doing, if we stand pat, I just think what they're doing or what they've allowed themselves to do through free agency is sort of along the lines of, who would you say is the best drafter in the league right now as far as from a GM standpoint?
I mean, it's probably the Philadelphia Eagles. It's probably Howie Roseman right now.
The thing that makes Howie Roseman great is that he doesn't overthink shit. He's just drafting the best player available. Anytime you're in a situation where you're starting, we need this player because we need this position taken care of, you're fucked. It might work out, but that mentality, you're fucked. And then you usually look back at that draft and you look at all the things, it's clear there were 3 guys that were better than that player. They all ended up playing better than that player, and you probably were better off drafting that player, even if it worked out. We are in a position where you can look across this roster and be like, they addressed everything we need to address. Probably one thing still remaining is I do want a pass rushing specialist. If they do Dante Fowler, maybe they think that's enough, but I would still like to add another piece to that. But that's it. That's it. As far as things that need to be addressed, we get it. Right now, when it comes to draft, you look across the roster and you're like, there's no position if we added a rookie that's better than the players that we have, you wouldn't play them because we're not overpaying anybody. And if they play, most of these contracts are only 1 year, so who gives a shit, right? That's where we're at. Or he's putting himself in position to just look at the draft board and be like, that's the best player. Just go get him. Don't overthink it. Don't try to do too much. Get the best player available. And that's all you want your GM to be. That's all you want your GM to get in this position. It's like the Yahoo, when you're doing a Yahoo fantasy draft, and there's always that asshole that doesn't show up and got Yahoo drafted for him. And at the end of the draft, when you're comparing teams, you're like, motherfucker, how do you have a team that good? It's because Yahoo's not overthinking it. They got the list. They just, all right, top player, top player, top player. We overthink shit.
Yes. So safe to say that Howie Roseman is the auto drafter on Yahoo. Okay. Yes. I think moving forward, that's auto draft. All right. So like that's what he does. I mean, it's always best player available.
Right.
Adam Peters did it last season with Johnny Newton, and people were like, oh, well, you already got Jonathan Allen. We already got Deron Payne. And then actually a deeper look is like, well, actually at the end of this season, maybe Jonathan Allen's not there. And now we're ready for the next season. So best player available, oftentimes, even if it's a position of strength, you look at contracts, all of a sudden that person is needed come year 2. So just keep going with best player available. I will say this, K-Dot, to your point, because we've talked about Debo, getting a wide receiver, if there is one that happens to align with best player available at that time too, especially in round 1 or 2, that financially also makes a lot of sense. I just wanted to add that note as well, because that player doesn't need to be extended for a bit. So if you extend Terry and then you extend Debo at the end of this season, by the time that player is eligible for an extension, let's say they play really well, one of those two is probably gone, if not both, right? So like that sets up well for that wide receiver moving forward. So it could be something that's being thought about because some people still want a wide receiver too. This would be the best way to do it in my estimation, but we'll see.
I think wide receiver, what I'm looking at right now is if we're going to address anything from a free agent standpoint, I just need somebody to take the top of defense. Gallup kind of fits that role. I just need somebody to take the top of defense. Remember, the guys on my list, most of them are back where they wanted to be, or back where they, like Darius Slayton. He was very, very high on my list. New York kept him. Even though it's so hilarious. Every year, Darius Slayton gets benched. They want to trade him. They want to cut him. And then every time at the end of the season, they look at the stats and it's like, Slayton's been that dude for them. They are so ungrateful. I was grateful to you, Darius. You shouldn't have re-signed with those assholes because you'd probably be on the bench by mid-season again because they hate you. Maybe you get one of those dudes. But I will actually say, looking at the Noah Brown thing, I'm gonna say that I'm kind of like you did with the Marshawn Lattimore thing. I now agree with you so much I might believe it more than you do. I'm actually, if he's healthy, because you remember one of those things that he had last year, was it a kidney or liver issue?
Yeah, it ended his season. The kidney issue.
It's not his fault. It's not
right.
It's
a
random
freak situation.
It's a freak thing. It's not that he's like very injury prone or something. It was a freak sort of thing. I'm cool. Noah Brown, number 2. I'm actually all right with it. I'm cool with it. Knowing he's number 2, Terry's on the other side, and Debo is that third kind of gadget guy, and Luke McCaffrey, what I'm hoping happens is he takes his role as far as like a true slot receiver. I'm good rolling in the year with that, honestly.
And it's also got to be said, a fact that maybe not many people know, Noah Brown, up until the injury, was either amongst the top or the top guy in terms of pass interference yardage picked up.
Yep.
So if he's taking the top off of defense, great. With his size, odds are he's getting interfered with more than others, at least in this offense from last season. Does that mean that that's always going to happen? No, not necessarily, but it's in his bag. He can be difficult to guard down the field, right? Because there's no reason to interfere otherwise. So this is a serviceable player on the outside that I think does have upside, honestly, because he had good chemistry with Jaden Daniels. Now, again, do we look to get another wide receiver early in the draft? I think it's on the board. I don't know that we do. I agree with you, K-Dot. I would love to get an edge rusher, especially if it aligns with best player available. But another thought is wide receiver, running back, to continue building that offense.
Running back.
I know where you're at with that.
running back. I cannot stress to you how crucial I think running back is. More than any other thing on the offense, running back.
I agree with you.
Unless you find some other dude to plug it into the offensive line.
Home run hitter, though, we don't have a home run hitter yet.
No, but I'm saying that like right now, knowing that the draft is incomplete, I have a really strong feeling right now that, like I said, the only thing that I'm looking at right now that I want them to address this a bit more is edge rush. That's it. Everything else, knowing that they have the draft to fill out the rest of the roster, I'm good. I'm completely fine. I'm all right with rolling in. I think we've upgraded over what we had last season. And I think with the progression of the team, I feel that we're in a really good spot. I think that we have done a good damn job so far this offseason addressing what we need to address. Think about the High Roseman and everything else. It reminded me of some poets from the 1990s.
Okay.
Don't go chasing waterfalls. Stick to the rivers and the lakes that you're used to. They're not chasing shit. We're used to chasing shit. You look at free agency, you're like, you want guys to go chase the dudes that you think are great.
Right.
Look across the landscape of the NFL and truly tell yourself, do perennial winners do that? The answer is no. They stay away. They make that phone call to Bovada and say, take me off your website and don't let me come back. No matter what anybody says, no matter what offers they're offering, which is $500 and free coin slots, which would have been amazing. It could have made me a millionaire. I can't do it.
And
they're sticking to the philosophy.
Right. And if we just look at the teams that were in their respective conference championship games, for those that are upset that we haven't done enough in terms of big names and stuff like that, I would ask you to tell me what Kansas City's done, what Buffalo's done, what Philly's done. Right. So like, I would argue we've done more than those three teams. So I would say, look at your competition, right? If this is where you feel we should be now, right? Look at the other teams that were at minimum the exact same point as you. And I would argue we've done more than them. 100%. Okay. So just to keep that in mind too. That's all. Right. Any final thoughts here?
You look at some of the big name players, like you look at, well, we haven't done a Saquon move. Motherfucker, they were already built and they added Saquon to the end.
For years they were built.
You don't,
exactly.
You don't bring in the stud running back when your offensive line has proven they can run block, okay? Ask the New York Giants how far they got with Saquon Barkley. That motherfucker still would have been out of the playoffs last year if he stayed in New York. Yep. We all hate New York for not doing it, but still, that's what it remains. They needed to be better in order to utilize them properly. You bring your Christian McCaffrey to San Francisco. What do they already have? They put the whole fucking roster, and they're like, all right, let's add this piece. Baltimore Ravens, shooing for the playoffs every year. And they say, you know what we need to build? Derrick Henry's available. Let's add him to it.
Right.
That's what you want to be. You want to be the team that's like, hey, that's somebody special. Might be an overpay. Got everything else kind of locked up. Do it. We can afford to do that. We can afford to take a chance. When you look at teams like Philadelphia, we mentioned C.J. Gardner-Johnson. For most other teams, you don't let a guy like that go. Mm-hmm. No one gave a fuck. Because Kenyon Mitchell's there, because the white boys are there. Like, they're fine. They're fine. Like, that's what you want. You want your team to be that.
Correct. All right. And with that, any final thoughts, Kate, up before we move to the common mailbag?
No, COVID is about to kick my ass. I can feel it. I feel it.
So we'll go ahead and speed this up and get to the comment mailbag featuring an intro from our very own Nikki.
Comment mailbag time, motherfuckers. District divided, ain't got time for no suckers. Spread the word, get in line. OGs and new G's, it's your time. And spread the gospel, cause this shit is divine. Yeah.
Thank you, as always, for that intro, Nikki. We begin with Tony.
All right.
Shout out, Tony OG. This, by the way, is the definition of had us in the first half, not going to lie. Hey, Amit. When I met you at Northwest Stadium, you were cheerful and super respectful, but I didn't know you were fighting the internal demons of A-Train. Just know K-Dot is here for you. I am here for you. We're all here to help and support you because friends don't let friends crash out. You can do this. Don't give A-Train the wheel. That got 3 thumbs up. So for those that don't know, first off, K-Dot, bravo. I ended up rewatching the episode, and I had lost internet, and K-Dot carried the pod, and I was like, I wonder what he said. And he took extreme liberties, by the way, to explain what A-Train is up to. And it seems a lot of people really bought that. So K-Dot, your reaction?
It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, who at the worst, if he fails, at least falls with daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. That is great words by Theodore Roosevelt. Ones that we would hope one day will be the creed of A-Train, that he will understand and realize that there are men and people around him that love him, that support him, that won't let him lie to himself, that will hold him accountable. That while he thinks that his co-host might have just taken certain liberties to tell stories, he knows internally, subconsciously, that his co-host took an opportunity to reach out, to try to find the greatness in him, to let it out. Thank you, sir. And those likes, there should be more than 3. Feel the love for A-Train. Hold your arms around him. It's not his fault. Substance abuse is a terrible, terrible thing. And he needs our love. He will do great things. He just needs to believe in himself.
The Nathan Perry goes, loved K-Dot's bit when Amit dropped out. All right, listen. So this feels like, there are interventions that happen for people and they go, I don't have a problem, etc.
You can't gaslight a gaslight.
Most gaslit intervention.
You can't gaslight the gaslight. Sir, it don't work that way. You can't double gaslight. It don't work. We're here for you.
I love that you just knew immediately I was going to gaslighting. I was like, this is insane. It was a really, really well done bit, though. It was absolutely fantastic. I was crying laughing.
Still going a bit, guys. It's not sinking in.
Bit. A really, really good bit. We go to Big Papa Grizzly at the 32 or 30. What's going on?
I said Big Papa.
Big Papa. Papa. Big Papa Grizzly with a couple comments. At the 32-34 mark, so 32 minutes, 34 seconds. Could you imagine DJ Reed, Marshawn Lattimore, Mikey Sanderson, and Jeremy Chinn in our secondary. Yes, please. Got a couple thumbs ups over there. Of course, Chinn now gone. DJ Reed, interesting. He signs with the Detroit Lions, and he said it was between Detroit and Washington, which was news to Washington, according to John Keim, because they did not feel it was either Detroit or them. So maybe DJ Reed just trying to go, hey, I know you guys lost to him last year. I picked you guys. I could easily see that being a thing. K-Dot, your reaction?
It looks like everyone could imagine DJ Reed here in Washington except for Washington. like that's we all had more imaginative minds than whatever this Washington was doing. They're like, nah, we're good.
Yeah.
Hearing John Keim talk about it, he's trying to be as kind as possible. He's like, I mean, DJ Reed, maybe he felt that way, but I've talked to all my sources in Washington, and no one felt the same. Like it's just...
it was funny. It was just like, wait, what? It seems like in the front office.
You might just watching TV and be like, we ain't talking to that motherfucker. What are you talking? What is he doing?
Us?
Somebody contact DJ Reed's agent. Who's
the leak? Who's doing this shit?
Who went rogue? God damn it!
Big Papa with another one. Hey, K-Dot, I left a top 5 list on the last video that got missed. I posted it super late, but I'd love to get your opinion if you guys could pull it up. Awesome show as always, gentlemen. Excited to go through this offseason with both of you and your top-notch content. Appreciate that, Big Papa. And so why don't we go ahead and go back? I just need to remember top 5, so it's probably this video. And there it is. All right, Big Papa Grizzly with his... This is in reference to his Jaden Daniels already a top 5 quarterback. Big Papa Grizzly is giving his top 5. Last comment, I promise. Top 5 quarterbacks. Number 1, Patrick Mahomes. You cannot argue with the stat line over his career. Fair enough. Joe Burrow. This man is a better quarterback than even his Glazers give him credit for. Still the only AFC quarterback to beat Mahomes in the playoffs. Number 3, Josh Allen. He earned MVP for a reason. Number 4, Jesus Timothy Daniels. There hasn't been a more clutch quarterback since Tom Brady. And number 5, Lamar Jackson. You can't ignore the failures in the postseason. Also gives a top 5 rappers list. Okay, in no particular order. Ice Cube, Eminem, Lil Wayne, Nas, Tech 9. All based on lyricism and cultural impact. K-Dot, your reaction.
So much to unpack.
Yeah.
So much I want to yell and argue about. So much I might agree with, too. Who was his number 4 as far as the quarterback list?
Jesus Timothy Daniels.
Yeah, right. I can see the vision of everything except him. That being said, the Joe Burrow thing, I want to put Joe higher. I really do. My problem is he's in Cincinnati, which regardless of how great he is, it's just going to be capped. You think back like Carson Palmer, even John Kitna for a little bit. That was fun. Booma Esiason. I think Joe's better than all of them. That being said, he's in Cincinnati, and it ain't going to ever happen for him. And I just, because of that, you kind of capped, buddy. So it doesn't even make sense to put you on the top of the list because you ain't really going to, like, you ain't win the Super Bowl. So it's kind of sad, but it's what it is.
Oh, man. On the subject of Cincinnati, I mean, talk about ownership mattering. There's so many contracts that they could have gotten done earlier if ownership were proactive. And now they're in this huge hole. So Trey Hendrickson, Max Crosby's deal happens. And all of a sudden Trey Hendrickson's like, well, the price went up. And they're like, good point. Go find a trade. We're not paying you that. Then Myles Garrett, and I think Cleveland's done this with Cincinnati a couple times now. Myles Garrett gets his deal, which congrats to him. Holy cow. But it puts the number at $40 million for non-quarterback. A week before that, Cincinnati promises to make Jamar Chase the highest paid non-quarterback. Guess whose price just went up? And T. Higgins got franchised for the second time. If they do it a third time, which they won't, it is now the average of the top 5 quarterback salaries. So that would be paying T. Higgins 1 year, 50-something million next season, which will not happen. So they are potentially losing everybody. So it's, man, ownership matters. We know it for sure, but it's more fun to look at it from the outside perspective. Man, they're in trouble.
They're cheap as fuck. And as a matter of fact, I'm good with the Joe Burrow rating that he has right there, just because
that's what I was going to say.
Credit.
So him at 2, I get.
And him also, like, flexing almost like an NBA player in the sense of I've got to do what I can to recruit because y'all fuckers ain't helping me. So like, I give him credit for that too. The only other point I'll make, Tech 9 being your all-time rapper list. The other ones I can argue about. I'll never have Eminem that high, even though he deserves it. I'm racist. Outside of that, Tech 9. I adore what Tech 9 means to hip hop. I think he's supremely talented. It ain't for me. I've never wanted to listen to Tech 9. He falls in that category that Eminem is into now, which is like, I know you can rap. You've proven it to me. Can you make a song I want to hear?
I think people feel that way about Kendrick, actually.
I think people that think that way about Kendrick are stupid.
That's fine. I'm just saying I think that's what it is. Feel. Okay.
No,
no, that's objective. I know we're talking about is.
No, I get it. That's what it is. You don't want to think. The thing is, like, I get it, but I don't think Eminem and Tech are not talking about the things that Kendrick's talking about. It's not that deep. You can listen to anything they're saying, and the only thing you'll pick up is wordplay. There's so many pills or ways of killing your mother that Eminem can rhyme. There's nothing layered. It's just, oh, did you catch that? Did you catch that? Did you catch that? That's all it is. It's not, hey, I need to study some philosophy. Or have you read Nikki Giovanni? That's the only way that you'll be able to understand that Kendrick verse. Like, it's not that. It's just, dog, I know you can rap fast. Cool. You can do a bunch of stuff. You can rhyme shit. Oh, that's awesome. Can you make a song I want to hear? That's it. Not to mention, if you've ever been a Tech 9 concert, very white. Very white.
Drop a few tracks. We'll see if K-Dot likes one of them. Jim Sleazy.
Oh, shout out to J-Rock. Free J-Rock. Free J-Rock. LAPD, sons of bitches. Free J-Rock. He used to be on Strange Music. Just saying. That's the guy. TD.
Jim Sleazy goes, I agree with Dot. I kind of hope BSJ is still around. Again, he went to the Chargers. I don't think he's as bad as this fan base thinks. He's just not a CB1, and it was 50-50 with bad plays from him to bad calls called against him. And when he doesn't get turnovers, he looks bad when his name gets called for PIs or gets burned. He doesn't get enough credit when his name is not called. Okay, so the commentary there, which I think is a good point, right? You hear PI on him, and you're like, man, screw St. Juste. That seems to be, at least if you're just on Twitter, what you see constantly, because unfortunately negativity garners the most attention in terms of likes and retweets. But there are many instances, even in the Falcons game, when I think it was, I can't remember if it was Quan Martin that had the interception. St. Juste was on Drake London on that play, and he blanketed him. So like that was a moment where he wasn't mentioned, but he made a nice play. K-Dot, your reaction to the commentary on Benjamin St. Juste and Jim Sleazy's comment here.
Jim Sleazy, remember him.
I know. I was like, wow, what a pod.
Oh, jeez. Jim, bipolar? All right. So with BSJ, the way I put it to you is this. I like his size. I like his physicality when he's playing in the right position and he's doing what he needs to do. Sometimes in the right position, but I never want to see him start a game in any sort of situation against a number one receiver. I'd like a game in which we're giving somebody a breather and he's trailing number two receiver at some point, or there's an injury and he might be trailing number two receiver. That's it. And I'm good with that from a depth standpoint because he's going to show you some good things every once in a while. But every once in a while, if you leave him out there long enough, he's going to get beat. He's just one of those guys. As far as the negative connotation aspect of it, which is where I think things get overrated, but I'm guilty of it too. There's somebody for us that every once in a while, maybe it's rose-colored glasses and nostalgia or whatever, I'll see people talk about like Redskins of days past. Mm-hmm. There's a name that's absolutely toxic to me anytime I see it because I remember I hated every time he was on the field. There was never a point in which I liked this dude at all, and that's LaRon Landry. He rubbed me the wrong way so fucking bad that I hated his guts on this team. Every time that look at that hit I made. Yeah, I know they converted third and 24,
on a PI
but I'm flexing. It's like,
yeah,
fuck you. It's Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, I want to talk shit to Deshaun Jackson before the game. Oh shit, that's an 84-yard pass, but I'm still flexing. Look, steroids do a lot of things in your brain. Maybe that's what it is, and maybe I need to have some compassion. But I get it. And the thing with BSJ is that it's one of those things you don't remember the good hits. You remember about cornerbacks, man. The most heralded guys. You look at Champ Bailey. If you're watching over the course of the game, his name doesn't get called. Why? Nothing's happening over there. Like, so that's what it's one of those thankless positions. If you're doing a really good job getting interceptions, which is part of the job, sometimes it's just not getting interceptions. Nobody's throwing your way. But every once in a while you get beat badly. That's the only thing that everybody's going to remember about you. BSJ is just supremely guilty of having a lot of plays that are only memorable because you remember the bad things. That's why I credit you as far as remembering that he was blanketing Drake London, because no one else remembers that. I watched the All-22. I don't remember that. So
I mean, I was at the game. I watched him. I was like, all right, where's St. Juste? And the pick happened. And I was like, dude, he played great there.
Look at that. So BSJ, if you weren't at the game, singling in on him, you probably wouldn't have that memory.
Yeah, that's true. I just want to say, like, I think it's natural for fans to have a scapegoat. And I guarantee you we're going to have another one again next year, right? So BSJ's off. There's a role that needs to be filled for some fans because that is their quote unquote healthy way of getting the anger out. They just pick one person and that's it. May I please remind, and this is a lot of the younger people who, as they get older, they'll be like, okay, I shouldn't have done that, whatever. So I recognize that. These are human beings. They are trying their best for your team. Yeah, he had a really rough year, but I would love if we could ever get to a point where the negativity isn't so vitriol, because it really was around Benjamin St. Juste. It was bad, dude. It was really, really bad. Running the District Divided account, holy shit, the amount of stuff you see. You just have to scroll past and be like, man, this sucks. Like, it really does suck. Because, St. Juste's a younger guy. He's probably looking. Like, I just hope that we don't do it again next year. I'm fearful that we'll find somebody and do it all over again.
I can't help but know that one of the highlights of our entire year of this podcast, for no good or positive reason, was Benjamin St. Juste. It's great. I cannot ever not think about that. Yeah, I mean, again, the thing is, yes, there's a human element to it that we all need to remember. These guys are people. There are bad guys that play. Like, yes,
that happens.
Albert Haynesworth, bad guy.
That's different because he came out and said it. That was like, okay, got it. You want to play that game? I get the open season element of this. Go ahead.
And because I'm a perfect human being, LaRon Landry too. Don't ask me any questions. It's him. He's on that list.
He had a nice little run at single.
He's on the list.
Okay. Well, all right, cool. We go to, I get it though. I do get it. We go over to Jamal Bibi Charbon. We shout out. I think Debo is going to shine with us. Let's just hope that he was with the wrong team before. He never had a play caller like Cliff or QB like Jaden Daniels, with a couple thumbs up over there. Of course, we have talked a lot about Debo Samuel. We don't need to relitigate the entire thing, but K-Dot, your thoughts there.
Do you think Cliff Kingsbury is about play calling and Kyle Shanahan?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think,
but it's different. I would recognize that.
I'm not denying that, but I'm just saying pump the brakes. Like, once again, I think Debo is going to be amazing for this offense. My whole thing is like the semantics of it and what does that look like. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's flashy or gaudy stats. I think it's impactful moments. That's what I keep going back to. I think Debo Samuel is going to open up a whole lot for this offense and what it is we're able to do. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that what I think that San Francisco did is that they treat him like a number in the sense of, we're going to use you. And we're just going to run you into the ground. And I think for some guys, it's like, well, if you're going to do that, you need to compensate me for it because I know my career is not going to be as long as other people's careers. I think you're seeing that his age, he's got a lot of wear on those tires. My thing with that is that, like, I don't need the wear and tear, but I know that if I pick you in the right spots and I give you the ball, it's going to be great. I think what Debo ends up doing a whole lot is like misdirection shit. Mm-hmm. Like, he'll be a dude running in motion just to run in motion, but you don't need to get hit that play. So you might do that 3 times in a row. Everybody's like, all right. And then that 4th time you hand the ball, he trucks somebody over. It's like, he's fresh and he's dangerous. Or the dude that, like, he's been running end arounds until the 4th quarter. And then it's like, it's Debo time, baby. And like doing shit like that. That's what I'm looking for, is those bursts of like, that drive was all Debo.
And so I was looking at his usage. So, for people that know, I think I've said this a few times, like data science, data analytics work. And so I have a dashboard. I've shown K-Dot this before, but it shows their usage rates each week. Debo was pretty consistently second, maybe first at times if McCaffrey was out. So, like, there is a lot of talent over there. They did use him a lot more than I thought. In fact, I do think that the quality of opportunity here will be better, but that's just an opinion. we will go ahead and see what happens. There are a couple more comments on Debo, so let's get to those. We can continue the conversation. Hermit Rob goes, agree with Amit on the Cliff Debo thing as well. Cliff will get him open. K-Dot wrong about you should get open no matter what, speaking to the talent of a wide receiver too. That's just not true, as Debo isn't and never has been a conventional wide receiver. He's a wide back, a position he's played so uniquely. Other teams refer to players with a similar skill set as our Debo. He's their Debo. So what works traditionally for the position wide receiver league-wide does not apply to Debo Samuel. Furthermore, I do not believe Cliff, Adam Peters, Dan Quinn consider Debo the number 2. I believe the true Z has yet to be filled. A field-stretching, precise route-running traditional wide receiver. That is not and never will be Debo Samuel. Edit. I agree with K-Dot in that they need a true 2. I also agree with Amit. Debo will eat just fine with the addition of a number 2 or not. They won't buy another veteran for that spot, though. They need to get younger at wide receiver, period. Bring up Terry's eventual replacement in the draft.
You got to react that first.
You were laughing the whole time.
Just you see it all come undone. It's like he wanted on principle to ride with you. And the more he unraveled, it's like, yeah,
but we essentially said, but that's what I was saying with the labeling issue. We essentially landed on the same thing.
It's labeling, yes. But that's the whole point. Is that like what it ends up being is that it's Z, X, Y, whatever. He ain't that. He's a weapon, and I think that he's great as a weapon. But if you're looking at what I consider a number 2 receiver is traditional within the confines of an offense, right? That to me is what a number 2 is. Mm-hmm. You got your first, you got your second, you got guys. And as far as the get open standpoint, I get that too. That's once again why I'm not calling him a number 2. I think a number 2 receiver has to have the physical abilities to get open, especially on one-on-one situations, through their own play. Through I ran the route better than you, my footwork's better than you, better than some of these cornerbacks out there. They shouldn't necessarily do it the same clip a number 1 receiver should do it, but as a number 2, you should be able to occasionally do it. Like I look at Devontae Smith. Do you think Devontae Smith lined up against most of the cornerbacks in the league can get open on his own occasionally?
Yes. Of course you can. Yeah.
That's my whole point. It's
but I would also say that, your Jalen Waddles, your Devontae Smiths, your T. Higgins, those guys are cream of the crop 2s that are probably 1s elsewhere. So, like, they are exceptional.
I think that's some Bradley Beal stuff. I think that's the.
I'm not calling them strong 1s, but they could be 1s. In New England, any one of those guys are 1.
They wouldn't be good.
I don't know that T. Higgins would be a bad 1.
I think that T. Higgins is not great. So, like, that's my whole thing is that I look at a number 1 and number 2 receiver as far as like on your own. How often out there on island can you do it by yourself to get open? When I look at a T. Higgins, I'm saying that if you put him at number 1, his percentage of getting open by himself is not enough that if you pull a bunch of coverage on him, right, that he can do that consistently enough to be good at it at number 1.
So you're, just so the audience understands, this would be a situation where Jamar Chase is not playing, right? Because that's where the coverage can roll over to.
Right. So like,
to be clear,
a T. Higgins with a Terry McLaurin, we got to figure out on defense where it is we're going to put the guys, right? It's like, how often are you going to be open on your own? Like, how often can you, through your physicality and the ball placement, can you just go get it? Like, that to me is those are your best receivers. That's how you rank your receivers, right? How often can you just do it on your own? The guy just go do it, right? And yeah, of course, it's dependent on the quarterback throwing the football, all sorts of other shit. And if you're a good coach, what you're trying to do is scheme up ways to get these guys open regardless of whatever it is that's happening to them. Goes without saying. But I'm just saying the way I look at receiver rankings is just what can you do out there on your own? That's why, like Jerry Rice, I didn't give a fuck what was happening or who trailed coverage on him. You can double team that motherfucker. He's going to find a way to get that goddamn football. Justin Jefferson right now, double team me. Motherfucker, try to double. Go ahead and double
catch radius. I mean, that's the number 1 receiver football.
I get it. But like if I told T. Higgins to go do that, I think he can do it occasionally, but nowhere near as much as some of the other number 1s. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that, if the coverage was trailed on him. That's it. That's all
I'm just making the case that if we go to the 16th best wide receiver 2, right, that we're not necessarily getting that easy separation that maybe some of the other guys are getting.
Easy. It's just at the clip at which you do it. Like if I throw it, over the course of the game, can you do that 3 times?
But this is where I'm so intrigued with the talent in San Francisco and Kittle being as good as he is, and it just going, okay, well, Kittle's going to be open like that, or Ayuk's going to be open like that. So that tends to be where Brock looks, right?
Because that's the point that I'm saying. I don't think people watch enough Debo. Look at him run a route.
Mhm.
Look at him trying to get open by himself. Look at him just trying to use his physical tools to get open. If we're ranking those receivers, he's really low.
Which
Scarily low.
You're talking about those three?
No, I'm talking about any receivers across the league. If we were doing that ranking as far as how often can you get open by yourself, he's way below a lot of number twos.
So I'll push back on that, obviously. From the Debo I've seen, last year, I acknowledge wasn't his best year. He would say the same thing. But I don't think that's who he is. So I think my feeling is you're underrating his ability to get open, and your feeling is I'm overrating his ability to get open. That's where we differ, I think. But the labeling, we're on the same page.
So he doesn't need to get open all the time. Like sometimes it's like, motherfucker, just there's space in there and you can run somebody over. Go fucking do it. The problem is if you're not a receiver that can get open and you're relying on using your physicality to make things happen, that's wear and tear. And at 30 years old, if I'm relying on you to do that over the course of the season, you know what else I can rely on you? Not being available the whole season.
If we're using him at the rate that maybe some fans are thinking, yes,
that's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying is that's why I talk about pitch count. Is what Debo's good at is using that physicality to make other things happen. So if I'm Cliff Kingsbury, what I'm looking at is like, can I scheme so that Debo Samuel is out in space with a corner and one-on-one? Can I do that? And if I do that, I trust Debo to run that motherfucker over. The same way, if I can get Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey one-on-one against a DB, if I get space and he's got the ball in his hands, I take that matchup. The only problem is that's physical, that's a hit, and I got to consider it on your age. I got to consider it as far as how often I'll be able to use you to do that thing. That's what makes Debo special. He leads the league in like broken tackles every year.
Broken tackles, yak. Like, he
but never in separation.
In his hand.
But never in separation.
Because he doesn't really need to, given his skill set.
My point is you can't. The reason you don't see it is he can't do it. Like, that's my point.
Again, we agree to disagree over there.
The numbers are there. You're a facts guy. You're a numbers guy.
I'll check the facts. I'll check the facts.
I'll
check the facts. We got some more.
This Debo thing is insane. This is going to be the entire offseason.
It's exciting, man. Hermit Rob goes one more time with two more comments. Here's one of them. They can afford Hendrickson and Garrett if we're keeping it 1,000. The late round ones could be used for Miles, and a 2 will do it for Trey, with Cincy throwing us back a 4th or a 5th. Is it probable? No. Is it possible? Absolutely yes. And since then, again, Myles Garrett has signed that historic deal, keeping him in Cleveland. Trey Hendrickson, currently the asking price is a 1st-round pick, to which teams are like, no. We're not doing that. But especially because he lines up at one very specific spot. So we talk about versatility over here. He's not versatile. He's excellent at what he does. First team All-Pro. Excellent at what he does. But the versatility isn't there. So I think that's why people are balking at the 1st-round pick. That was the whole point of that. But people are willing to meet how much he wants, right? There are some teams that have already said, right, we'll meet your asking price, Trey, but we will not meet the Bengals asking price. So that's the other layer to it over there. K-Dot, do you still see Trey Hendrickson as a possibility?
Very distinctly so. Remember, the only thing I need us to add is a pass rush specialist. This is where we're at the point where I don't need you to be a great run defender. They address that. Some of it might work, some of it might not work. I don't need you for that. Right. I need somebody that on their own, on that D-line, can go after the quarterback. To me, he's a perfect fit for what it is we've already addressed so far in free agency. A perfect fit. And I do think that it's something, if Cincinnati will start relenting on that, and they will as time goes on because they know they don't want to pay him. I think it gets done. I do think we're going to be heavily in that. I really do think we're at the top of that list.
Hermit Rob concludes with, Amit is right. 1 year was not enough Bobby influence for the team to leave the nest without him yet. Let's be honest, it's his team. Yes, even more than Jaden's. He's the Hall of Fame OG, period. His influence is just still needed to solidify the culture moving forward. Having said that, I'd still pursue Dre Greenlaw. Be an excellent way to ease Greenlaw back in on 3rd down and give Bobby a blow on those same 3rd down coverage plays. If Bobby's open to it, that is. Big if, no doubt. Dre, if himself, is just the perfect replacement at the mic. AP should make it happen. He won't be expensive. 4 to 7 million, I'd say. Very doable in any event. Dre Greenlaw, 3 years, 36. Okay, so you ended up going for 12 million per, which does blow away that 4 to 7 million marker. Again, I was bummed that we did not. I said I would be, and I was bummed that we didn't get him, even at that price. I do think he would have been worth it over here, especially as a longer-term piece. But there are questions about the injuries, of course. I just love the profile of player that he is. K-Dot, your reaction to the 1 year not enough of Bobby Wagner, which is why we brought him back, and the comment as a whole. Go ahead.
Yeah, you were 100% dead on that. To me, it was along the lines of I didn't necessarily disagree with everything you said. The only thing that I thought was that it couldn't be done at the same time. So I'm of the idea that you can bring a Bobby Wagner back to do certain things, but if you're going to do that, you don't have the space to get then a Dre Greenlaw because what you're gonna pay him compared to what playing time is gonna look like there for him. I don't think you get a guy like that. I think you get a guy that might have upside, or you might be able to start rolling in, but you're not gonna have a guy with the quality of Dre Greenlaw and have him sitting there not getting as many reps or not getting as many opportunities to be out there on the field as possible. That was my philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't disagree with the sentiment about anything. I just thought it was a choice to be made. And I'd also tell you that if I'm looking at the choice to be made, as far as where we are in the team and where we are, from a timeline standpoint, I say that keeping Bobby Wagner for another year is more important than getting a talent like Dre Greenlaw here on the team. And I think the team.
I agree there. I do agree there. So if it was one or the other, I'm picking Bobby, just to be clear. And so I'm glad we did that. Now, I think it also says, okay, it is time for those younger guys. We need to see what we have over there. We can't just right now. Our average age is 28.1. That is the oldest in the league. And should it stay at 28.1, this will be the oldest team in the league in the last 15 to 20 years. It won't be. There will be cuts, and that number will drop. But you need younger guys. I know we're bringing in a lot of veterans, and we only have the 5 draft picks over here, but your impactful players need to be a mix of older and younger. I think the team recognizes that. Jordan McGee, Dominique Hampton in particular, who is a large safety, right? He's a heavy hitter. He's quick. I think that's a guy that maybe rolls into coverage at linebacker on occasion. So that is somebody to look out for as well, or these younger guys coming up.
I keep hearing about Jordan McGee. Every time you get anybody from any of the beat reporters or anything, they just keep talking about how high they are on Jordan McGee. If they are that high on Jordan McGee, and that's what it is, then he is perfect in the sense of why you wouldn't. Right. If they're that high, this is why you didn't address linebacker and free agency the way you did.
Right. We go over to Bet Boy Tony C. Shout out. The offseason is a lot more fun when we have so much to look forward to. I've already secured my season tickets for next year, and I cannot wait. It can be hard to shake that damn Daniel Snyder PTSD, but an AP I trust. The Debo signing was great for a lot of reasons, but number one for me is the culture fit. We're getting a guy that already plays ball with a huge chip on his shoulder, but that chip is made bigger because he feels slighted by the 49ers. It's the first of many great moves to come. K-Dot, your reaction.
I think this offseason they're kind of testing that, which is one of the reasons why I'm so hamstrung on Bobby Wagner coming back. I don't think surface level the Javon Kinlaw is what it is. When I hear about play like a commander, that's not it. When I hear play like Commander Tunsil, does not describe that to me. I think they're taking Deebo Samuel, another guy. It's not necessarily, there's some aspect in this game, but not necessarily locker room shit all the way through. I think what they're saying is that we have the culture, and by extending guys like Bobby Wagner, we are going to take some chances here and there to see whether or not we can get a guy, and is our culture strong enough to mold them into what it is we want. I think you have to test it at times, and I think the positions in which they are testing it are far worthwhile.
Yep, I agree with that as well. I do think Debo's going to be good, especially in a 1-year situation in terms of the culture. But we'll see.
Have you heard about the fight, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's shit like that. I like Deebo Samuel. And I'm telling you, that year he had in 2021, he shot, I think also because I had him on my fantasy team. He shot up a lot of rankings for me. But it's I love his play. I love when he has the ball in his hands. I love what he does. Remember, one of my favorite players the last 20-some years is Percy Harvin. I love these guys.
Right.
I love your Swiss Army types. I just think it's going to be a bit about, can this locker room, what it is we built, mold you into what it is we want you to be? Do you feel psychologically, I don't want to be left out of what it is that they're building here? I think if you can leverage that, you're going to be in a good place. It's going to get tested. It has to.
Yeah. I don't know how much molding there is to do, but we'll see. Just Anto, concluding the comment mailbag over here and opening with quotes, Quinn was bleeding from his butt, end quote. Literally how an audiobook ad on YouTube starts. I truly believe we are going to get a rejuvenated Deebo Samuel. He knows what people are saying about him. Granted, he doesn't fit the locker room all around great guy fit, but his play style and leadership are on par with the course. Welcome back, Bobby. The Frankie and Bobby show must go on. Goodbye, Allen. You didn't want to be a leader, but you were the team's locker room captain we needed in our darkest days. The Garrett versus Hendrickson debate. Garrett is exactly what this team needs as far as a pass rusher and run stopper. Hendrickson is a far superior pass rusher than anything this team has had in years. Won't be as helpful in the run game. The problem with Rivera regime is the fact that this team really has no young talent besides the last draft on it. Granted, we have a ton of salary cap, but we need our draft capital as well. So you basically have to wait for a blue chip player to hit the open market without having to trade for them to get the most bang for your salary cap buck. Yep. As of now, I would get Hendrickson. He'll be cheaper, and he's actually going to be available. You could sit on your hands and wait for the Browns to stop Browning, but we know that won't happen. Garrett will take multiple first-round picks, plus even if he even becomes available, which he did not. If we could get Hendrickson for a second and maybe something next year, go that route. We do have Brandon Sosna, and he's going to be a huge factor this free agency. I want to watch this wizard work after a full season. We're in good hands for once, boys. I also have a theory. Peters was the mastermind behind the 49ers. Keep an eye on how we move this offseason. Love the show and cocaine. Share this shit. K-Dot, your reaction to Just Santos' comment there.
Don't love the last part, man. You got to get yourself together. You do not need to be bad influences to my co-host here.
Okay.
Like, it's a through line. We're here to help.
Go ahead. What do you want to say?
He's getting frustrated. See? He's getting a little itchy. There's some stuff he needs to take care of right now. He's got to get through the afternoon. Some of us drink coffee, other ones do other things. Look, I'm sorry. The beginning of the whole thing caught me off. Quinn was bleeding from his butt. What? Like it's, it shit was amazing. Yeah, I'd agree with most of it. And like I said, I love the idea of a Trey Hendrickson here in the sense of like the way that he fits what it is that they've been able to do to address certain things. Like to look at a defensive line in which you could have everybody lines up, Trey's on the edge, and then all of a sudden Deron Payne stands up and then runs over to the outside of him. And you got a defense like, what the fuck are they doing? And like Javon Kinlaw sometimes when they got way out of the outside, like, what is happening? And then fucking the new safety, Will Harris. I keep wanting to say Walt Harris. I
know, throwback.
So fucking me up. Will Harris dropped down in the box. What are they doing? Like, it's just, that's the kind of shit that I want to see. I just think he would unlock so much more for us. I want that so badly. And we called it here on the pod way early on. It was pretty much impossible for Cleveland to trade Myles Garrett. It was just whether or not Myles Garrett was going to accept being the highest paid guy and not cause a big stink. I actually think in the grand scheme of things, if Cleveland gets their head out of their ass, they're in an amazing situation going forward. They just, I just don't think they're going to have their head out of their ass.
No, that's fair.
No faith whatsoever.
He called it. He said, "If the Browns stop Browning, like I mean, that's there for a reason. That's there for a reason."
And you know about Deebo take no notes. That's exactly the way I feel about Deebo.
Totally fair. And there's a lot still to come this coming off season, and this was episode 7 of it. Jess, great comment as always. Everybody, great comment as always. This was District Divided, a DC sports podcast, more specifically, a Washington Commanders podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening, and please comment on this video about what you think of the off season so far. Because there seemed to be a mixed bag. A lot of people very excited. A lot of people wished for a big name or two over there. And if you enjoyed the episode, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment as you always do. And K-Dot.
If you fall into the camp in which you were hoping there were bigger names, or you think we didn't address it, or if I hear or see the comment, God, it's just the same. It's not your fault. You need a hug. We're here to hug you. Chill the fuck out. Like, you gotta
Play it
chill.
one more time. Honestly, play it one more time.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
just go for it. It's important.
Sorry, I closed my video clips folder. I'm gonna pull it right back up. Here you go.
Look at me, son. It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. I know. No, don't. It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. All right? It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
And with that, share this shit. We will see you next Friday, 2 p.m. So until then, take it easy, and it's not your fault.
No comment. No after the pod, right?
No.
Got it. Okay, cool.
I'm
Sorry,
35.
fucked up your ending.
You're fine.
Hey, bye, everybody.
So yeah.
It's not your fault. Don't do drugs. Be there to support Amit or A-Train. Sorry. Stay the fuck out of Clarendon.
At least differentiate that. I'm not there.
Stay out of Clarendon.
I'm
It's
not
dangerous.
in.
In DC, we're just hoping that you listen.